guys. I'm Kim Kral. I'm reporting to you not live from my closet. I'm laughing because I was like picking my nose, and then I realized that I had to talk soon, but then I also realized I was recording video. And I also realized that the reason why I have such a hard time in here is that I like the breathing, like, you know how my breathing's all fucked up. Right before I record this, I do like 40 things like really quickly because for some reason I always need to record a crawl space in like a pinch. Like someone's picking me up in an hour and I'm like, I got to get this done right now. Like, God forbid I do it later. I don't know. I share a wall with my neighbor and I don't know how loud I get. And I know he probably already thinks I'm a little crazy. But the only times he says he can hear me is when I watch The Walking Dead. He's like, that's a really long show. Like, it's been going on for a long time. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you've been able to watch it like every day a lot for like almost over a year. I'm like, oh yeah, I've watched it 3 times. And he was like, oh, the whole series, you did that. I'm like, yeah. And then he goes, and you also listen to the song Shallow a lot. Shallow is a really good song. Okay. It's a really good song. Sha-la-la-la. I can't sing. I'm a little bit better than I was last week, guys. I mean, the circumstances are the same. I just feel better about it. I know that like experience, like I'm in it, right? Oh no, I almost pulled down everything in my closet. Oh my God. And I'm currently pulling a muscle. Okay, there it goes. You know, when you're like, oh, that's going to hurt. That's going to smarts in a minute. But yeah, like, I mean, the circumstances haven't changed. My guy is like actually not talking to me. I'm not laughing at it. I'm sure like, I don't know. I'm just going to let it go. There's literally nothing I can do. And then the friend I was talking about that I set a bunch of boundaries with has unfollowed me on everything. It's just like, oh God, I don't know. Experience has taught me that when you are this uncomfortable and you're in it, if you just keep going, there's like a really cool growth thing that happens on the other side. Not like growth, like gross growth. You know what I mean? Like a growing opportunity. Like, so like I said last week, I think I'm about to go to the next level, new chapter. And I'm, with my guy, God, I'm so terrified of him listening to this. Well, I mean, I guess if you are listening to this, I guess you're listening to something I'm saying because you're not responding to me or talking to me right now. I may have had an overreaction, but I don't know if I did. I don't know. I am learning how to have relationships and not just like with like a significant other relationship, but with like people too, like friendships too and family. And I'm just learning that like I was on my own for so long in terms of like I've always been surrounded by people, but, wasn't raised in a home where, I didn't have parents like that, like one wasn't really around. And the other one was just like way too enmeshed, but like only for his own gain, never to care about my well-being. Right. Like I realized, I don't know, maybe a month ago, my mom sent me this wild text message and it was really sad. I don't know if I told you guys about this, but the text message was just really crazy. And she's not a well woman. Like that's I have a lot of empathy for her and I send her out love and I wish things were different, but she's just not a well woman and not healthy to have in my life. But she sent me this crazy text message that was like, I mean, I can't even remember what it was, but it just hit me when I read it. It was just like, man, my parents never made a single decision with me in mind. Every single thing they ever did or said was about them. And I don't know if I shared it on here or not, because it took me like a month. It was a sad realization. And so those were the first 2 relationships I had. And I was really, I was abandoned pretty hardcore by both of them, And so I got this mentality for most of the time I've been alive, like I had to have it to survive. Ooh, I'm already getting emotional. I had to have it to survive my childhood. And then I was given these tools in childhood to survive this trauma. And then I took those tools into adulthood. And now I'm realizing those tools don't match the life I want. Like, I don't want to just like survive. Like, I want to, I'm really sorry in advance, thrive. I want to thrive. I hate that when we're like, I don't want to merely survive anymore, but it's true. Like, and so I'm learning how to have healthy relationships where I am vulnerable and I open up to people and I rely on people. And getting COVID really forced me to do that. I talk about that. I've talked about that a ton, but I'm just now, so like, I don't know, my vision and perceptions are still a little skewed. Like, I had a reaction to my friend, my guy friend. I don't even know what the fuck to call him, but I had a reaction to something he did, and it was like old Kim behavior of like, well, fine, fuck it. I don't even want to be in this anymore anyway. Like, you don't seem like you do. And like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, call me. Why are you talking to me? Like, I went a little crazy the last few days. And it was, it was an overreaction to something that deserved a reaction. He was shitty and I overreacted. And now all I can do is really just like, let it go, let it be. If we're meant to reconnect in a healthy way and it's for the greater good for the both of us, we will. And I don't know, it took a couple of days of meditating, walking, writing it out, meditation, turning it over, all that stuff, crying, yelling, freaking out, staring at my phone, all the usual suspects to get to that, where it's just like, And the good news is the growth in that is normally when I have gone through something like this in the past, I don't do anything except stare at my phone and will that person to call me. And instead, I've just been like, all right, man, well, you'll come around when you come around. And he is special to me. So I hope we do reconnect and it is healthy and for both of our goods, because he is really special to me. But I also know that looking at how I reacted and how I've reacted kind of to this situation the whole time is that I operate on the assumption that you're going to abandon me, so that he is going to abandon me and I should, get in front of it before he does, like, all right, well, if you're going to fucking abandon me, then you can't, you can't fire me. I fucking quit. And like, and I'm doing that. And I don't want to do that this time. And you know what? If I still stand by it, if he's the guy, then none of this matters and he'll be the guy. If he's not the guy, then this is a massive learning lesson for me for the next time. So I'm a little sad and I'm a little sad and I hope it's not the end. But if it is, I don't know. I believe in that John Lennon quote more than I think anything. I believe in, there's a bunch of stuff I believe in full-heartedly. But it'll always be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And that was proven to me with my father. And I just let it go. And in terms of the friend that, that's just a childish reaction. She's coming from maybe the same place I'm coming from with my guy, just like, all right, well, you can't fire me. I quit. And so it's all just a bunch of like, but I'm in a way better place than I was last week. Like it's going to work out. It's just going to work out. I'm so sweaty. I'm like, I forgot. Like, so I interviewed this girl, Katie Dahl, for Crawling Up this last Saturday. And we've never physically met. We just like met on a Clubhouse call for female comics. And she has a similar podcast. And I'm the guest on her show. I believe it airs today when this comes out, Wednesday, the 5th. But when she's on it, when I'm interviewing her, I probably spend 10, 15 minutes explaining to her how sweaty I get. And I'm gonna put that up. I like found all the places. I'm gonna make like a little edit together and post it. I don't know. She's very pretty and very cool and very like Hollywood. And I'm like, I'm real sweaty. And she's like, it's okay. She's very sweet. It's a good interview. And it's interesting to talk to people who grew up in Hollywood, so check that out. But but it reminded me. So I'm sitting here and I'm getting ready to do this, right? And I'm like getting ready to do this episode, and I'm like looking in the mirror. I'm like, God, and I'm like, well, it's good. I actually just sort of look kind of tan and glistening. Like I look like I did just go to the beach, but I'm like also like glistening and not just like. But it reminded me of this story. Because like you guys, I forgot how hot it gets in here, and I forgot all last summer how hot I was all the time in here. And I was like, oh fuck, I have to record either at night or in the day. And now I've added a ring light, which brings a whole new set of sweat problems in, because it's just like in this tiny area and it's so hot. But it reminded me of this story. So when I worked at Big Wang's, that sports bar in Hollywood, if you're not in Los Angeles, it's like, just like I don't know. It's just a sports bar, I guess. It was some of the best times of my life. Some of my favorite people currently, some of my best friends I made at that place. But so I went in one football Sunday and I wasn't working. It was one of the rare occasions I wasn't working. I might not have worked there anymore at this point. Doesn't matter. But I was in there on a football Sunday, and it was like hell hot outside, like crazy hot outside. And I was wearing, the Broncos weren't playing, but I was wearing this beautiful orange dress that I love so much that has torn in several places. And I just keep putting safety pins because I refuse to admit that it's something I should just get rid of, because it's so pretty and it's long and you feel naked. It's amazing. I love this dress. But I'm wearing it. I'm so sweaty, and I'm sitting at the table. I used to be the waitress for the Eagle boys, I'll call them the boys, that rooted for the Eagles. And I was their waitress for years. So I'm sitting with them. And I'm sitting in their section, and I guess I'm at a table by myself at this point, so I'm alone. And then in walks in this really hot Bronco guy. So he's wearing a Bronco shirt and he's super hot. And he sits down with me and we start talking and we're like hitting it off. But the problem is I'm like pouring sweat, and not like, I mean, like to the point, and he's not at all. He's wearing pants and he's fine. He's like not sweating. And I'm trying to like casually put my head, if you're watching it on video, you can see it, casually wiping my hands, like putting my hand up to my chin, like I'm leaning down, but I'm really just trying to wipe the sweat away. Then I'm trying to like casually wipe the sweat stash, which I get like a crazy amount of. So it just looks like I, have a fucking sweat stash. And I'm doing my fucking best, but it's getting bad. And then if you have bangs, if you don't have bangs and you're sweaty, I don't know. I have a bunch of theories about bangs and foreheads. And like, I don't know. I was telling this girl who was younger than me who wanted to get bangs, and she has a really good forehead. It's like a little forehead, and she wanted to get bangs, and she's like 29. And I was like, don't get bangs. You got a good forehead. Also, you got like 5 good forehead years left before it starts getting wrinkly. Then get the fucking bangs. But like, when you're like in your 20s and you have a nice forehead that's like small, why are you getting bangs? Bangs are for those of us who have massive foreheads. All right, don't take our thing. Just kidding. That's how I also feel about short women who want to date the 6'7" guy. It's like, come on, man. Like I'm 6 feet. Let me have this. We could get into that. I don't want to get any messages about how I'm being mean to short guys. I've dated a few short guys, shorter than me guys. Anyway, so I was sitting there, and so if you have bangs and you're sweaty, like your bangs. So your bangs serve as like a helmet or like a shield to your sweat forehead, but like it's very flimsy. So as long as you don't let you or anything else touch your bangs, the forehead sweat is fine. Like it just sort of stays under there and the bangs are dry. But the second you accidentally touch your bangs, it's game over, dude. And I accidentally touched my bangs. And then now my bangs are soaking wet and they're just like stuck to my forehead. And he and I are still carrying a conversation on about like the Broncos. Oh, we're both from Denver. He's so attractive. Like uncomfortably hot. Where I was like, I can't date you. I can't. It's just, I'm a hot person, but I'm like not a hot person. Like I read somewhere, like I'm a part-time hot person. Like I can be a hot person, but a lot of times I'm not, and like, I just don't want that pressure of dating a guy that's just like uncomfortably hot. Also, there usually no personality there. And, this guy was all right at best. I wasn't like enthralled with the conversation, but it was, he was hot. We were both sitting at the table. I like talking about the Broncos, but I was like, I have to do something about these bangs. I have to. And I didn't say that, but I was just like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he's like, cool, I'll be here. So I go into the bathroom and my bangs are soaking wet, stuck to my forehead. Like I'm a mess. I'm drenched in sweat. Meanwhile, this fucking guy, it's a hot person thing. I don't understand genuinely like hot people, right? They're just like, they don't have to have the sweat stuff. Like I just don't get it. They're robots. They're probably robots. That guy was probably a robot. Anyway, he was wearing jeans and tennis shoes. It was so hot. I'm getting hot thinking about it. Anyway, so I'm in the bathroom and I'm in the bathroom. And what am I saying? Oh, yeah. So I see how sweaty they are. And there's a hand dryer. And at the time, I used to carry this little comb with me. So I got my bangs wet and I like washed out the sweat. And then I blow dried my bangs with the comb. And they came out and they were perfect and fine. The problem is I should have just left it. Because when I came back to the table, I sat down and I was like, oh, hi, thanks for waiting. Or like, well, I don't think you say that to someone when you come back from the bathroom, but whatever you say, you know, I haven't been around humans in so long that I don't remember what you say when you leave to come. Hello, I'm back from the bathroom. But I sat down and he just like stared at my forehead. And finally he goes, did you blow dry your bangs in the bathroom? I was like, yeah, I did. It was really sweaty. And he seemed really weirded out by that. I don't really know why. Like in hindsight, now that I look back, and I'm like, I don't know, buddy. If you had bangs and they were sweaty and you saw a hand dryer, you'd probably do something about it too. So fuck off with your judgment, you hot Bronco fan. One of my friends in that Eagle crew ended up marrying that guy's sister. And I saw him at other events and he pretended he didn't know me. And I think it's because of the blow-dried bangs situation. But I'm just a sweaty cat. Cat? Why would I do that? I'm just a scared. I was going to say gal. And then last minute, my mouth went cat. I'm a cat. I think cats are dudes, right? Kitten, whatever, doesn't matter. Oh, man. So it's going to be a hot summer, my friends. It's going to be a hot summer. But I guess I could just record in here. I don't know. I just got done emailing my agent who he submitted me for this thing that was like mountain bikers. Yeah. Extreme mountain bike riders. And then it was like, do not submit if you are not an extreme mountain bike rider. Do not submit. And I was like, why on earth would this fucking guy think that I was a fucking extreme? Like, he's been my agent for like 8 years. Have I ever been an extreme? Like, I've mountain biked in my life. Like, I'm from Colorado. It's rough though, man. I've done it on trails. I know how to ride a bike. And so I email him and I wrote all that. I was like, hey, Martin, like, I don't know if I should submit to this. It says don't submit if you're not comfortable in, quote, extreme terrain. I don't think I am. I've mountain biked before. I know how to ride a bike, but I'm not like an expert. And he was like, well, in your profile, it says that you're an expert. And so if you think you can't do it without like falling in a ditch, don't do it, but your call. I hate it when they say that. It's like when you were a kid, or at least my dad did this. I don't know. I'm learning more and more as I grow up and talk about my parents and the choices and things they said to me. This wasn't everyone's experience, but my dad would do this. I would be like really sick. And my dad would go, I mean, if you think you can miss school, go ahead. It's your call though. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll go to school. And then I puked in lots of trash cans at school in my life, my childhood, because I felt guilty about like staying home and taking care of myself. And so when he was like, your call, I'm like, no, I literally told you I'm not able to do that. But I was like, oh my God, does it say it in my profile? So I guess when I created this profile, when I was like 21, when I first moved out to Los Angeles, you're on this profile. It's called LA Casting for those of you who are in Los Angeles actors. It's LA Casting, and it's what am I saying? You just submit for projects, right? Your agent will submit you, you'll submit you. And so in your profile, you know, what's really wild. One of the things that I recently read that I was like, is that what that is? Is that people with long haul COVID smell smoke a lot. I smell smoke all the time. And then I get like nervous that like something's on fire. Nope. That's just the COVID. Okay. Yeah, I was like, that's what that is. Like, I've been reading a lot on long haul COVID and like things that people are dealing with. And like, just like, I don't know, it's nice. It's been nice to not feel like I'm totally crazy or totally alone. And one of the things is that long haulers smell smoke a lot. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So right now I'm smelling smoke wild, right? So I created this profile. So I guess when I was 21, under stunts, I wrote that I could do stunt level expert mountain biking. And I mean, I wrote back, I mean, maybe this is how, when my agent drops me, when he's like, I'm enough is enough. I don't know, who knows, but he doesn't, it doesn't matter. But I took it off. And then I looked at all the other stuff and I was like, Jesus. I mean, there was stuff that I added that I'm like, oh, I know how to do that now. But there were things that I don't know why I put that on there. As an expert cheerleader, I wasn't an expert cheerleader when I was a cheerleader. I couldn't even do a cartwheel. I'm terrified of trying now. I will never be able to do a cartwheel in my life. That is something I can hand to God, tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I will never be able to do a cartwheel. And I'm totally fine with that. But then I started thinking about just all the auditions I've had in my life here and like all the sketchy ones and then the like really cool ones and then the ones that you think are like I had this audition downtown for a quote reality show and it was like you're basically in a house full of women and it was like The Bachelor, but it was scripted, but they wanted you to be you and there was no money. And it was like in this mansion downtown that I auditioned in. And it was so weird. And I was just like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And they were like, suit yourself. And you're always a little scared when someone tells you that because then you walk away and you're like, what if that is the thing? I met a woman when I first moved out here. I worked with this woman who what is that fucking movie? Boys Don't Cry, the Hilary Swank Oscar-winning movie. She was offered the role of the blonde broad. What's her name? Chloe Sondheim. I don't know her name, but the woman, Hilary Swank's love interest, right? She was offered that role, and before Chloe Sondheim was, I don't remember that broad's name, but she was offered that role, and she didn't want to do nudity, and so then she said no, and then that movie went on to win a bunch of Oscars and then launched both their careers. And so it's scary in this business because you just never know what is going to be the thing that will launch you. And you always want to say yes. But as you get older, you realize you don't have to say yes to everything. Some things are just that weird reality show that your gut says don't do it and you don't do it. And then it turns out to be nothing and you're not degraded. Like, you know what I like? It's like I have this interview tomorrow. I'm very excited about it. It's definitely in the W Hotel and definitely in a random man's hotel room that I don't know, but it's also coming recommended by a guy that I know well. And I would say, I mean, I don't know. I guess if I die tomorrow, you guys know that that's what this is. It's called Passion Pod. And I'm really excited about it. But it like in the interview, he was like, or he sent me over the questions and he was like, what's it like to be a full-time working comedian? And I'm like, oh, I know like 4 full-time working comedians. Most comedians and actors have like 6 jobs. And I'm like, God, do I tell him that? And yeah, of course, you be honest. And it's like, yeah, right before the pandemic, I was on my way of not bartending. It was really exciting. And then the pandemic hit and it was just like, we all had to kind of, do what we had to do. And so I don't even know what's going to happen next, but it's just like, so he's like, so I'm like, I guess you just be honest, but I don't want to disappoint this guy. I mean, look, the guy that played Theo from The Cosby Show. I think that's the character. I watched The Cosby Show when I was really young, but I don't remember it. And then I never rewatched it. And then the whole Cosby stuff happened. And it was like, ew. But that guy had a job at Trader Joe's and everybody was like, oh my God, what? And it's like, well, yeah, we're humans. That in Los Angeles is expensive. And so I don't know, hopefully this guy isn't kicks me out because I have to have several day jobs in order to, support my budding career, which, I think if you're listening to this, you probably agree that my time is coming. Maybe that's why I'm going through all this uncomfortable shit. I'm learning how to fucking set boundaries with people. I one time had an audition, and it's so funny because this audition is down the street from my now apartment, and it it's this big building that used to have a bunch of little, and now it still does, but they're shops now. But it used to just be a bunch of abandoned commercial places, right? And they're full now, but like 15 years ago, they were abandoned. And I had this audition, and I show up, and it's at this abandoned place, and I walk in, and there's this tiny old man named Mel. And by old, I mean like 70, so legit old. Right? Not like, I know someone the other day told me that 40 was old, and I was like, die in a fire. I'm almost 40. But like legit old. 70, I still think is kind of that odd age where you're not like old, where it is still, I don't know, whatever. But he was like 70, and he had this rag on his shoulder that he kept wiping his drool off. And I was so new in Hollywood that I didn't know that I could just go home, that I could see an abandoned building and not go, I shouldn't go in there. Instead, I'm glad I did, because, I have this story all these years later, but I could have been, one of the things that was buried in that concrete that was like busted up. So I walk in, there's a toilet to my left, there's busted up concrete all over, and this tiny man, he introduces himself as Mel. I'm like, hi, Mel. And he's like, I'd like to run some lines with you. So we ran some lines from a streetcar named Desire. And then he turned on. So we did that for like a half hour. I know you guys were like, why didn't you leave? I was 21. I wanted to be an actress. I thought that this was part of it. And it kind of is, sadly. It is kind of part of it. There's a lot of like sketchy auditions I've been to that turn out to be something real. And I'm glad I stayed and I got this cool job. And then there's some that are like, you stay and you like do it. And then you're like, oh, this is a stupid thing that I did. I should have not stayed. But you just never fucking know, right? Unless your gut is like, leave. And I'll tell a story of that one time that happened. Oh, so scary. But so I'm like, so Mel and I read Streetcar Named Desire for like a half hour or something. And then he has this little boombox, and he turns on, it's classical music, and it's from like the actual Alice in Wonderland, like C.L. Lewis. Is that a thing? Yeah, C.L. Lewis, I think. I don't know I don't know if you guys know, but I am not a literature aficionado. I think it's C.L. Lewis, but like the actual like real classical music. And then he puts his arms around me, and we start dancing like professional ballroom dancing for like 15 minutes, and he's wiping off his drool, and I'm confused. I'm 22, 21. I'm blonde. I'm gangly and awkward. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And then we finally stop, and he goes, I'd like to work with you every Saturday for 2 hours. I'd like you to come here. We never acknowledged the toilet. We never acknowledged that we were in an abandoned building. We never acknowledged any of it. He's like, I'd like you to come here, and we will dance and read for 2 hours every Saturday from here on out. And I was like, Mel, I don't think I can do that. Thank you, though. And I think I'm going to take off. I should have been murdered that day. Like, that story is that story is the beginning of how someone gets abducted, right? But he just said, okay, totally understand. And I think about Mel once a week. I wonder whatever happened to him. He's probably dead. That was 20 years ago almost, right? Or 15 years ago. He's probably dead, I'm imagining. I don't know. Or maybe he owns that big building, and he's the one who had, all those stores now. He finally, hit it big. Who knows? Who fucking knows? But that was my like first sketchy audition, my very, very first ever audition. I used to, for actors out there, there's a woman called Dallas Travers, and she's now, I believe, a coach, like a, I don't know. She's blown up and done something, but she started out, she had this hole in the wall office in Los Angeles and Santa Monica in West LA somewhere, right? And I said 3 different places. If you live in LA, you know that could all be one thing, but in West Los Angeles. And, she's hole in the wall office, and she would charge you $50 a month. And this was before online stuff. So this is how long I've been here. I promise I'll make it one day. I think it's just persistence. I also took a wild break to, deal with some pretty hardcore trauma. So let's all just be nice to ourselves today. Okay. I'm like I said, I'm in it. So the loud critical parent inside my head that I refer to as Brian is like, wow, that was a long time ago. You haven't made it yet. You probably never will make it. But I feel like acknowledging it and also telling you guys that if you feel that way, that's just a made up voice in your head, and it is wrong. You know what I mean? Like I could make it tomorrow. Something I did 10 years ago could pop tomorrow. You know what I mean? So let's pipe down. I'm telling a story. I sound crazy. So, So Dallas Travers, you would give her. So it was before like you would submit online, right? It was when the internet was like barely around. Like you would like dial up was the thing, right? And I think broadband was still around, but I was like super poor because I just moved here. I lived in a 1-room apartment, like literally a bachelor. I had a hot plate and I had AOL dial up. And so you'd pay this woman $50 a month, and she would go to Backstage West, which was a newspaper, and submit all of your submit all of your headshots to all the roles. So she wasn't a manager or an agent, but she was in a sense where she would submit you, but it was a flat rate. There was you wouldn't pay her anything if you got any of the jobs, right? So, but she was like a manager. And so I called her. So the very first audition I ever got in Los Angeles, I was so excited. So I get this call and it's like, okay, oh shit. It's like, so she calls me one afternoon and tells me I have an audition. I don't believe there was email really. So I'm sure she called me. This is so long ago. Tells me I have an audition and I'm stoked, right? Like I'm 21 years old. I just got off the bus from Colorado. Not really a bus. I drove out here to Mercury Stable with my father. But I just got here, right? I'm working in this like sketchy ass phone room and I'm stoked. And I'm, I get the script and I'm reading the script and I'm memorizing it and I'm so excited. And then a few days later, I drive to the audition. It's in Hollywood. I get to Hollywood. I live in Westwood at the time, which is on the west side of Los Angeles. And I drive to this audition and and it's an apartment. And my heart sinks. Like, I don't know if I thought I was going to go to like NBC, walk straight up to, I didn't know anything about anything, but I thought it was like going to be in a big movie. I had no idea about student films. I had no fucking idea. Right. And I walk up and it's an apartment. So I call Dallas and I'm like, hey, this isn't an apartment. And she goes, fuck, I hate it when they do this. She goes, all right, what I want you to do, stay on the phone with me. Go up to the door, knock on the door, and when they answer, say, okay, I've arrived at, say the address out loud, and then say, I will call you in 20 minutes when I am done. And I was like, okay. So then I did that and it was fine. It was safe. I didn't get the part, but it was like that, like, cause that shit happens. That's like, and the reason, and especially if you're listening and you're like a new actor in town, I'm sure this shit still happens. The reason why you do that in front of the person is so they know someone knows exactly where you're at. So like, it's just making it harder for people to abduct you. You know what I mean? Cause that shit happens. Like, sadly, it probably still happens way more than it did back then. And so I did it. It was fine. I sat on the couch. I read. He had me read a couple more times and I didn't get the role. And then I was very devastated, right? I was just devastated because I thought, this was my big break. It was not. But another time I had this audition, or not an audition. I joined Model Mayhem, which I'm still on. And I think it says I'm like 25 or 27 or some shit. I don't know. I went through a part in my modeling career where I was told that I should pretend I was 17 and move to New York because I looked really, really young at like 25, but I was too old to model. So they were like, get a fake ID that says you're 17 and move to New York. I almost did. I'm glad I didn't, but I almost did. I couldn't find a fake ID, but I'm sure that it would have been easy to do. And so I was on Model Mayhem. And so I found this guy. What you do is you would trade trade for work, right? Or trade for print or something like that. I think it's called TFP. And so a photographer or a makeup artist will like reach out to a model and be like, hey, I want you to do this. Well, you'll build your portfolio. I'll build mine. So I did a lot of those back in the day. They call them like test shoots or whatever. I did a lot of those, but some of them, I showed up to this guy's house and a lot of times it was at a house. And this is another, if you're new to the industry and you're listening, I don't know if this is anything helpful, but, one of the tricks I learned, and I didn't learn it this day. Instead, I had to do a Oscar award-winning performance to get out of that situation. Instead, now I realize I could have just been like, no, this is sketchy. I'm leaving. Bye. That's what I would do now. But I was 21 and I didn't know I had options like that. But if you're new and you don't have the I'm fucking out of here, you guys are sketchy, whatever. What you do is you park out in front of the house, leave all your shit in the car, put on your hazards or whatever, go up, knock on the door. The guy answers. Your voice inside is always right? took me years to like realize I should listen to that voice always, always, always. So you knock on the door, the guy the person opens the door. If it's not sketchy, then you just say, this is what you say no matter what. But you're like, oh, hey, okay, just wanted to make sure this is the right place before I went and found parking. I'm going to go park my car. I'll be back in just a minute. And if it's a sketchy place, you just get the fuck out of there. And if it's not a sketchy place, you park your car and you go inside, right? So it's good to like check things out. And it's also good to always let somebody know where your address is, like Dallas had told me to do. But so I went to this guy's house, right? And I knock on the door and he is sketchy. I brought a knife with me. I have this big hunting knife because I used to sell knives for Cutco. That's a story for another day, probably. But I used to sell knives for Cutco, and so I had this big hunting. I still had the big hunting knife, right? So I brought this big hunting knife. I had this laundry basket full of clothes that he told me to bring that would be good for the shoot, and so I had it like buried inside the clothes, and we walk inside and he's like, all right. And he picks out a couple clothes, but he's like, I don't want you to wear a bra in this one. And I want you, I want you to wear that short skirt. Okay. And I was like, okay. And I felt so uncomfortable. And he's like, just go ahead and change in the living room. I'm going to go stand in the kitchen while you change. And the first round of outfits, I was like, oh, okay, I feel kind of weird just changing in your living room where you're like, there's no door, there's no anything. He's just like around the corner. He totally watched me change. You know that. He totally had a camera or totally watched me change. There's no doubt in my mind now. But back then I was just like, okay, and like frail and scared. So well, I changed in the first outfit and then it's okay. It's not great. You can tell he's not a good photographer either. Like the whole thing was just shit. And then he was like, let's change you into another outfit. He's like, just change in here. And I was like, I have to go to the bathroom. So I'd prefer to just change in the bathroom. By the way, if someone just wants you to change in an open room, tell them to fuck off and leave. In my modeling days, I got naked in front of a lot of people, and you can tell, and not in sketchy ways like this, in like runway ways where you're jumping off the runway and there are like 5 people undressing you to put a new outfit on you. That you just, your gut knows, like there's just a difference. It's like when a guy says something to you and another guy says something to you, they can say the exact same thing, but one is super fucking creepy and one is sweet. You know what I mean? So you just know the difference. And so I asked him if I could go upstairs and change in his bathroom, or if I can go change in the bathroom, which was upstairs. And he's like, yeah. So I bring my whole laundry basket up there and I get the knife already. And I'm like, all right, I need to just leave. I can't stay here. Like, I'm so scared. And so I was like, I'll just say I started bleeding everywhere. And this is it's such a cliche, but I came downstairs and I like the Oscar goes to, I was just crying and yelling. And I was like, I'm bled all over everything. I need to go home. And he's like, oh, but we should give some more shots. And I was like, no, I'm bleeding all over everything. And I just like ran out. Right. I somehow got those pictures years, like weeks later. So I must have given him my address on which is also dangerous, I guess, now in hindsight. But I also lived with people at the time, whatever. But he sent me a CD of the things, the prints. Not great. Not one of them. If you want to see it, it's I was very blonde. It's my very first Facebook photo, a profile photo. So if you want to go to my Facebook page and see it, you can. Or maybe I'll post it on here. I'm not sure. Probably not. Maybe I will. I always have to like think of a good picture for these episodes or a title or whatever. So maybe that'll be a good picture. I don't know. Oh no, I'm not doing that anymore. What am I saying? So yeah, just like, I don't know, man. So this interview tomorrow, which I'm really excited about, but he's asking all these questions about all of my experience in this town. And there's been a lot of really good experiences, a lot of really sketchy ones, bad ones, heartbreaks. And then today I'm saying I can't extreme mountain bike. And my agent's like, well, all right, which I guess I shouldn't have had it on there. I have no idea why I had it on there. I also said that I was an expert at doing a British accent. Guys, I don't know how to do a British accent. Hello. No, I don't know how to do a British accent at all. Oh man. Yeah. So look out for that interview tomorrow. It should be really exciting. And I don't know, man. I'm just trying to go with the flow and keep positive. A lot going on. There's a lot going on. And it's hard. It's it's just I don't know. I am learning in this journey of mine to be my biggest fan and best friend. And right now, two people that were very important to me are not treating me very well. And if my best friend came to me and told me that these two some of the actions these two people are doing, I wouldn't go, "Oh, you're being sensitive," or "Oh, whatever." You don't. I would be like, "Oh, you deserve to be treated the best," right? And with the guy, I don't know. I'm hopeful and I'm not ready to give up. And I know that I'm not ready to throw in the towel. And who knows, maybe next week I'll be completely heartbroken. And this crawl space, he says the reason why he said he never listened to it when we ended last year is because he was terrified I talked about him. And I was like, oh yeah, I did. I cried about you a lot, actually. A couple episodes, I did a lot of crying about you. And now I'm just like, man, this is now here we are again. Hopefully next week it's better news. I don't know. I'm in it, man. I'm just in it. And that's all right. That's okay. We're going to make you pump our gas one day. That's from Bring It On. I've been saying that a lot to myself lately because I keep saying, that's all right. That's okay. And then my inside, one of the voices in my head goes, that's from Bring It On. If you ever watched Bring It On. And then in terms of the other friend, like in my life, my side of the street, I talk about my side of the street a lot. And on my side of the street, I obviously know my side of the street with my dude. I had an overreaction to a thing, and I kind of wish I didn't have that. But if that makes him run away, then he was going to run away anyway, you know? But I also haven't been clear about, no, I've been pretty clear. I don't know. I think just the reaction thing. He's being a dick. He's being a fucking dick. But with the friend, my side of the street is that I set boundaries and they weren't honored. They weren't respected. And instead of, the first time it happened, me going, hey, I set a boundary and you're not listening to me. I just was like, okay, well, the line in the sand was there, but we can make it here. All right. The line in the sand was over there, but we can make it here. All right. Last one, and I just kept like making the line further and further back, and it just kept getting crossed and crossed until I finally was like, I can't do this anymore. You are breaking all of my boundaries and it's really fucking pissing me off. She's also lied several times to me, which is another thing. But I, which is a whole other set of stuff. But my part is that I didn't honor those boundaries because I was afraid of how I'm feeling right now. Because when you set a boundary with someone and they don't respect it, it's really uncomfortable to stick to those boundaries. I'm so uncomfortable because the only thing I can do, and now the unfollowing and all that childish BS, now it's like, I'm going to do all these things to hopefully get you to come back and not honor your boundaries. I'm just not going to do it. And I don't know what's in store for that friendship, but it doesn't feel like the guy where the guy I'm like, which is really funny. I may be dead wrong on both, but the guy I'm like, I'm just going to let it be. I'm not ready to give up on this. I think he's special. This one, I'm like, I think I learned a lot about it and I think I'm going to move on. But I've said it a bunch of times in my program, and I don't know if I've said it a bunch in here, but when I talk to program people and we take outreach calls or whatever, you can't set a boundary with an unhealthy person. Like you can, but they aren't going to listen. They're going to take it personally. They're going to react. They're going to all that stuff. And that's what happened here. You cannot set a boundary with an unhealthy person because when you do, every healthy person in my life, when I've set a boundary, I'm actually going to go to dinner with a guy right after this. And a dear friend of mine, he messaged me about, he texted me about how upset he is that this is going to take a left turn and I don't have a lot of time to get into it because my computer is going to die. I keep forgetting to charge my computer before I get in here. I will do better next time. That is how I feel about everything right now. I'm just doing my fucking best, man. I'm just doing my best. But he sent me a text about how upset he was that all these known rapists in the comedy community are getting stage time again. So prior to the pandemic, we had successful the community had successfully got rid of most of these guys. Like they were banned from most of the clubs. Most bookers wouldn't book them. And now that the world ended for a year and they've come back, it's like the roaches came out and people are. So he sends me this text how upset he is, how hard it is for him, and like just this whole, you know what I mean? And I listened for a minute and then I was just like, hey man, I'm gonna say that it's really hard for me to listen to this because you're talking to a woman, like we aren't able to say anything about these predators because then we're deemed difficult. So it's like you're stepping in front of the movement and making it about yourself. And it's just really hard to listen to this. And I wish that you wouldn't text me about this stuff and you would text it to your other friends, your male friends that have the power to stop this, because we women have tried and we're tired. And now we get to hear you guys being upset that you're being bumped by a rapist. Like maybe you ought to do something. And I was like, it just goes back to the whole, like with white supremacy, it's all white people until it's no white people. It's all men until it's no men. And I stand by both of that. And he is a healthy, loving man who responded with, oh my God, you are absolutely right. I am so sorry. I will not do that again. And like the boundary was just like, dude, I can't listen to you complain about something that like women have been dealing with the whole time. And now you're, you know what? But you can set a boundary with a healthy person. Like he didn't come back, justify, tell me, well, this is how I feel. Like there was none of that. It was just an, I'm sorry. I see how that could come off that way. That was not my intention. I won't do it again. And so I'm setting all these boundaries and I'm learning some people in my life are maybe not healthy enough to be in my life anymore. And that is really painful and really hard. And I'm still in it, man. I'm still in it. I'm hoping that next week we have better news about my dude, that we have worked things out, or I don't know. Hopefully it's just not in this weird limbo where I'm just like, text me back. I hope he doesn't listen to this. If he does, by the way, I hope he does. If he does listen to this and he's still on board, then he's the guy. If he's not on board, this is who I am. I am sweating again talking about this. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to read someone else's poop scoop story this week. Are you ready for your poop scoop? I will say, I did say this sentence to myself earlier today. I said this, God, I really have to stop almost pooping my pants. And I was like, yeah, you really do. And then I went and almost pooped my pants. But if you want to email me, I'm getting a lot of really fun emails about poop scoops. And I would love if you emailed me your poop scoop story, kimkralspace@gmail.com, KYMKRALSPACE@gmail.com. Or email me to say hi, or email me while you're one lucky broad. Just email me. Oh my God, I have 10 minutes left on the computer. Can we do it? We can do it. Or I'll have to redo this and I'll be very mad at myself. All right, this comes from my beloved Roger Powell. Oh my God, my beloved Roger Powell, the one who has, this is now, if you're counting, I think his 5th poop scoop story. And he labeled the document called poop_surprise package in all capital letters. And then he titled it something different and it says the pull up. As I'm telling them in order, my poop stories are still in the college phase. Oh my God, this man's going to turn 50 in a week or 2 weeks. The fact that he's still in the college age means that we have a lifetime still of wonderful poop scoop stories. I hope it's okay that I doubted your age, Roger. You don't want to be in Menudo, do you? That is an inside joke between Kim and Roger, but it is hands down the funniest thing Roger has ever said. Okay. That was just for you, Tiger. That one too. Okay, so one night, Corey and I went to Townsend University with another friend that we'll call, quote, Ben. The three of us met up with our pals who are Townsend frat dudes. We went to some college bars and, of course, drank like idiots. After the bar closed, we ended up at my friend Kevin's apartment. I love that Ben is in air quotes and Kevin is not. Let's just all know that. Okay. My friend Kevin's, that's the real name, Ben is not. My friend Kevin's apartment for one more beer, a few bong hits, and to play Tonk. It's a card game for money. At some point, Corey and I were ready to leave and noticed, quote, Ben was nowhere to be seen. So I went hunting and my first check was the bathroom. Bingo! What did I find? Was nothing short of amazing. Oh, our pal Ben was sitting on the throne asleep. So obviously I had to gather the guys to see what I was seeing before waking him up. When we aroused him, what? Aroused him, giggling with tears in our eyes. He immediately stood up and pulled up his boxers, and we all reacted with our versions of, oh no. You see, what he hadn't realized was the dump that he had dropped before he passed out was still in his boxers. We were laughing so hard because we opened the door. We noticed that he hadn't pulled up his boxers down far enough before pooping, and his boxers got caught all the dookie. What? How do you? That's drunk, dude. That's really drunk. When he pulled up those heavily soiled undies, I imagined everyone in the state of Maryland heard us scream with horror and delight. Dude, you have a full load in your boxers. No, I didn't, said Ben indignantly. I can't read. If it was as if he'd sooner believe that one of us had snuck in the bathroom while he was passed out and shit in his boxers, that would be great too. That would have been brilliant, but we didn't think of that. I love Roger said that. So he closed the door and he cleaned himself up. As Corey, Ben, and I were walking to my car, I heard my buddy Kevin yell, "Oh my God, he used Todd's bath towel to clean up." Todd was Kevin's roommate and was not home for this event. He must have gotten home to a wonderful surprise. His towel was white. Oh my God, that's fucking amazing. That's amazing. Thank you, Roger. Thank you. All right, that's our show, you guys. I'm going to wrap up with telling you why I'm one lucky broad. I'm one lucky broad. I did a lot of work this year and it has paid off in spades. I did a lot of internal work and I'm going through a really uncomfortable situation. And I'm not debilitated. I've gotten out of bed. I showered today. A year ago, Kim going through this, which, sadly, a year ago, Kim was going through this with the same guy. So that's something I probably ought to weigh into too while I'm thinking about what I want to do. But I was debilitated. I was devastated. I couldn't get out of bed. I watched all of The Walking Dead. And now I'm here recording a podcast, going to dinner. I'm not isolating. Instead of hoping this guy still cares about me or likes me, I'm asking myself what I want and how I feel. And that I'm one lucky broad because it is paying off in spades. And the friend that has sort of decided that we're, the unfollows is a blatant, clap out. I know that sounds childish because it is, but I would have immediately reacted by emailing her and begging her to still be my friend and follow me back. And I'm so sorry for having needs and wants. And instead, I'm just going to let it all fucking be. If this guy is meant for me, he is meant for me. And if this friend wants to do a little growing up and come around and respect me, then she can come back in my life. But until then, I am one lucky broad that I've done so much work that I feel okay. I'm not okay, but I'm okay. You know what I mean? So that's the show, guys. Thank you for listening. If you get a second, please leave a rating and review. I would love that. I'm going to read 2 reviews because one of them, this is from Ali Qureshi, my old roommate, who did in front of me. He was like, fine, I'll do it in front of you. What do you want me to say? And I was like, that doesn't count. And then he wrote this, which is like past tense. It makes me laugh. And I kept it. And he was like, I don't know, I wrote you a review. He wrote, Kim was great. Kim was hilarious and insightful. I love you, Ali. I love you. You are family to me. So I'm not discounting your half-assed review, but I love you. This other one, the next one I'm going to read is from Samantha Lynn, 1990. I love you, girl. I'm so happy that you listened, and I'm so happy that we got to reconnect. I know who this is. So it says, love it. I love 5 stars. I love how open and honest she is. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for all the support. I finally got one Patreon extra bonus episode up. The other one will be out later this week. It's called Poopapalooza. I was way too excited about that. Poopapalooza. And then I also have, then I'll have 2 more for the month of May because I promised 2 extra bonus episodes every month, and I will get them to you. I promise. So if you want to sign up to be a Patreon, or all the link is in my bio, and you can follow me at Kim Kral, KYMKRAL. All your support is really appreciated. I love you all. Stay safe. I will talk to you next week. Bye.
Kral.